Stage. First of all, welcome. Usually I give these speeches a little bit earlier in the week in the conferences, so I can say, hey, welcome to Tech Ed. It's a little bit late for that, so welcome to Thursday of Tech Ed. My name's Mike Truitt. I'll be speaking with Brian Sarasi. He'll be up in a moment. I'm the warm-up act. He handles the technical depth of this presentation. I'm probably one of the only people in the world that speaks to their title slide. Welcome to the Microsoft Private Cloud Fast Track session. I stay on on this slide for really two reasons. The first is that about 6-8 months ago, Microsoft changed the name of this product and this program from Hyper-V Cloud Fast Track to Microsoft Private Cloud Fast Track. I mention this because that really indicates how we view at Microsoft the private cloud. It's more than Hyper-V. Hyper-V is a great component of it, but without the full level of NIST definitions of a private cloud, the self-service management, usage-based, you don't have a private cloud. And so when we changed the name, it really changed along with going with that system center and the management of the private cloud. Hyper-V is there, obviously, but we also have these other components. I mentioned too, I also like to see my name up on the slide for a little while, so I tend to leave that up just because of that. And by the way, for those of you who've seen my presentations before, the jokes don't get any better the second time you've seen them, so I'll apologize in advance. So agenda, I'm going to take on about the first 4 things here. I'm an ex-high school teacher, so I usually start out with what I really want you to take away. I've got about 3 things. I usually go with that little rules. I'm going to tell you what I really want you to take away. We're going to talk a lot about it, talk about the technical aspects, talk about Microsoft's view of the private cloud, and then I'm going to wrap up with that again. And so we're going to hit just those first 4 bullets with me. I'm going to bring up Brian, my helper here, and my technical lead for the program, and then I'll close out with the wrap-up. So I talked about it. Ex-high school teacher. I joined Microsoft in, 1998. I joined a little team that handled blue screens, file systems, fault tolerance, what have you. Back then, we were working with NT4.0 and a little product at that time we called Wolfpack, which became our cluster server. But the private cloud fast track really is 3 things. First, it's the compute network and storage, along with Microsoft's OS and Hyper-V and System Center. It's a good bet you've been using, if not all of these, most of these before. So whoever your compute network and storage vendors are, it's a good bet today. We have them in the fast track program. We have 9 partners today in this fast track program. Brian will break down their solutions for you later in the slide deck, but industry-wide adoption. It's the server you've always seen. Today, it's Server 2008 R2. Tomorrow, we are working on the next version of the fast track program. So nothing scary there. You guys already know all that stuff there. The middle box, it's a validated design. So I'll talk a little bit about this, more about this later, but we have a validated design that we share with the hardware partners. We work together, we put these really smart people in a room together, and we create this design together as a partnership. It's not one or the other, it's absolutely a partnership between Microsoft and the hardware partners. And last, it's not a piece of paper. A lot of people call it a reference architecture. A piece of paper does not show up in your environment. A physical solution shows up. One of the problems with speaking this late in the week is that we had a whole bunch of these solutions down on the exhibition floor, but by the time we finish speaking here, exhibition is going to be closed. And so I can tell you, hey, go down and see that. Oh, right, you can't do that. But we had solutions on the floor from Dell. We had solutions on the floor from HP, EMC, NetApp. So these are physical instantiations. These are real things for your environment. It's not a piece of paper. And I fall back on not being a piece of paper because reference architecture, by its very definition, really is a piece of paper. We're selling real things here, guys. So those are the 3 things I want you to take away. If you had to leave right now, go get on that plane to head home, I want you to take those 3 things. So why would you use this? It's really a business before technology. You've got to do something with these things. I'm going to talk real quickly about this. I'm going to give you a few examples. First, integration. There's not too many greenfield environments. What I mean by that is not many companies and customers can go into their server room and say, there's nothing here. I can start over from scratch. No, guess what? Integration's key. Got to integrate these things with your current Active Directory environment. You've got to load over your, bring over your workloads. It's a tabula rasa, a blank slate for you to begin with, but it's something you can do anything you want with. But there is an integration piece that these will fit right into. Complexity in your environment is tamed with System Center. Guess what? System Center, one of the messages around System Center is it will help with heterogeneous environments. It's cross-platform from the middle up. You put one of these things in, but the management can help with your entire environment. And it's there to solve business problems. I was an ex-storage architect inside Microsoft, and I've talked to a bunch of different customers, and the general rule of thumb that I hear is that virtualization's been fantastic. It's solved a lot of the problems we had before. But we found out, introduced a new set. They're not harder problems, they're just different problems. So when I used to be able to go down my server racks and say, ooh, Amber Light, pull that drive. Amber Light, pull that drive. Okay, oh, that server's not working. Replace that. That was one set of problems of how to manage that data center. With VMs, there's a whole new set of problems. Where is that VM located? Which spindle is it on? Did it migrate across some geopolitical border that maybe it should not have? Did it go someplace where it's SOX or HIPAA compliant that, you don't know where that VM is? Is the VM on a drive that may be going bad? So it really comes down to this solving the complex business problems with a very, very strong management suite. All right, now I call this kind of my sausage-making slide. How do we do this program? I'll get you into the technical stuff with Brian here in a bit, but I want to give you a little bit of history about what Fast Track is. First of all, Fast Track is a program that was started about 18 months ago. We first announced it, again under the name Hyper-V Cloud Fast Track, back at TechEd EMEA in October of 2010. At that time, it was based on Windows Server 2008 R2, and it was based on a mixture of System Center products. So I believe that VMM was 2008 R2, but OpsMan was 2007 R2. So it was built on that mixture, but it was still the same type of reference architectures that we gave to the OEMs that then they took and made something physical. So that was 18 months ago. About 10 months ago, 11 months ago, last August, we released what we called the .1 update to that version. Really, the major change in that was we heard from our hardware partners and from our customers, we want the ability to have our management suite in VMs. We don't want to have two physical servers in our environment dedicated only to management. We got 16 servers in this Fast Track environment. We had 2 that weren't running any workloads. They were just running the management suite. And we said, okay, we hear you. It's a good point. So with version 1, we handed over to our hardware partners the ability to co-locate the management suites with the workloads. So all the management suites went into VMs, and then we were able to free up some more cycles for those workloads. Then version 2 was a launch we did, very similar deck to this one right here, at MMS in Las Vegas. It was a fun time, good parties. And so version 2, we took the entire management stack and brought it up to System Center 2012. Still using Windows Server 2008 R2, SP1, but the entire management stack moved to 2012, and that's where it continues today. The next version you don't see up here, we're working on the Windows Server 2012 with System Center 2012 versions for future release. That's really how the program has evolved. Now, there's this nice little graph on the right. I really want to talk about why the program. First of all, it lights up Microsoft investments. Obviously, Microsoft's put heavy investments in the System Center program. We have a great product there, and this is a complete solution that shows off that product. We have dynamic memory, which is a fantastic feature and functionality. This is a solution that really lights up those Microsoft investments around that. And partnering, this program does not happen, and I see several of my partners around the room right now. This program does not happen without the hardware partners. They deliver these very cool and compelling solutions to you as the customers. And so you have pretty much the smartest people at the hardware partner. No one knows their hardware better than them because they create it. You have the smartest people at Microsoft. No one knows our software better than us because we write it. And we put those people into a room for about, and change emails and con calls for about 2 months, developing this single solution so that when it gets to you, it's ready to go. Now, I've had to talk to a lot of executives about, okay, so we can do this ourselves. Absolutely. You can do this yourselves. If you wanted to create a private cloud yourself, and especially if you're using Microsoft technology, I welcome it and I'd applaud it. But what I also would ask you to consider is that we've done all the integration work for you. It shows up ready to go. I have yet to see an IT administrator that has a lot of bench time. As far as I know, IT administrators, everyone that I've worked with, are super, super busy. And the mean time to failure on that SSD drive in your casement is going to be, much lower than the IT administrator who hasn't slept in 2 days while they're running on coffee or Jolt Cola. So this basically takes what that IT administrator would have to do over months, weeks, months, and we've done all the work for you. But it's the partners who deliver it. They do a fantastic job. Brian's going to go over all the different partner solutions we have in market today on the version 2 that's mentioned there. So I kind of set up this slide a little bit. So let me delve into it just a little bit more. So this is kind of how Microsoft looks at the private cloud. These are different ways for that cloud to get into your environment. So in the far upper left-hand corner for you, we have really that do-it-yourself that we just talked about. Absolutely, we applaud customers who would love to go out and deploy these private clouds, use Microsoft technologies, Hyper-V, drive System Center into their environments. Love you to do that. Lots of heavy lifting there, but there's also a lot of configurability on your part, which is a good thing. On the upper right-hand side, we have hosted private clouds, which you're going, wait, they're hosted, they're not private, they're hosted. Well, these are private clouds where you can purchase rack time at whatever your favorite hoster is that works with Microsoft. We are selling these fast track solutions to hosters around the world. I've got several of those sales. Not spending a lot of time on those two outside boxes because the light purple box in the middle is what I own. I'm the senior product planner for this program for Fast Track. And so what we do is we hopefully increase your time to value, give you a solution that's ready to go faster so that you can focus on your core business instead of focusing on the work that we've already done for you. So these are pre-configured private cloud solutions. And that's the key for this, is that let us do the work. Let the people who make the hardware and let the software do the work, and then leave you to go ahead and integrate it with your environment or bring in a services play for this. A rich services environment, either from the partners or from system integrators or Microsoft's MCS as well. One of the keys around MCS that a plug I'll throw in is that MCS has a data center services offering, with DCS offering. So Microsoft Consulting Services says, okay, we'll come out and we'll light up and create your private cloud, make everything look real good. They build my reference architecture for me. It's a really good cycle. I have the people who are out in front of you as the customers. They're the ones who then make the architecture for me that I take to the OEMs that they build. It's very important to me to have three development things in this cycle. Number one, I want the voice of the customer. I don't want to create a product that a customer doesn't want. And I use Microsoft Consulting Services as my field-facing eyes to say, you know what, this is what we're being asked for. This is what the customers want. We're actually out there talking to them. That's the voice of the customer. I want the voice of the business. What can we sell? That's my job as inbound marketing. And the voice of the technology is Brian sitting down here, and the rich knowledge that we have at the hardware partners and inside Microsoft's product group to say, this is what we can build. If we can hit all three of those constituencies, we've succeeded. So I really tout MCS in this involvement, mainly because they bring that rich voice of the customer to my product. So we've talked about the high-level how Microsoft sees the private cloud. Let's delve in a little bit deeper here before we transition over to Brian. What is Microsoft Private Cloud Fast Track? How does it fit into that middle top box? First, we talked about those lower bubbles. Compute, network, storage. Easy stuff. You've got them in your data centers today. All of those things exist in your data centers. It's Windows Server. It's a good bet that you have that in your data center today too. You may or may not be using Hyper-V, but it's there for you whether when you want to use it. System Center. Manage the complexity. Again, once you get over, I'd say, 50 or 75 VMs, you're spending a lot of time managing VMs that could be used. Again, those IT administrators don't have a lot of bench time typically. You can use that time better and more efficiently if you have System Center environment. And last, all the partners create their own workflows. They create their own PowerShell scripts to make their solutions the best of the best. And so each one has their own features and functionalities that they slap on top of System Center to make your lives easier. Now, I talked about NIST definitions of private cloud, and we've got some here on the right. And so obviously we're elastic. We can grow the environment very, very easily. Add a new server. You don't have to add a whole new private cloud. I only need one server. In it goes. Need some more storage. In it goes. No problem. Continuous availability built on cluster server. So we have no problem with continuous availability. I always stop on usage based on this slide because I got surprised once here. I was sitting with a customer. I can't talk about their name, but I was talking about usage-based with their execs. I'm going, hey, you can do chargeback to your, you can do chargeback to your different orgs. So if you need to charge back to your legal org or to your HR or to whoever, you can do that. And I had an exec surprise me because usually that's an easy discussion. But he caught me off guard. He goes, "We really don't care." What do you mean you don't care? It's a definition. You've got to care. He says, "Our business model is that yes, we want to know where things are allocated and how we're growing, but we're not chasing a number across the spreadsheet because HR uses up more of our environment at the end of the month when they run their reports. Means not a lot to me. We're just going to make sure that they have there. We're not going to send them a bill and have them transfer some numbers on the top of a spreadsheet so that another column goes bigger. Says, we've got better things to do." I'm going, okay. It's not often I get surprised, but he shocked the crap out of me on that one. So we really look at all of these tenets for NIST and we hit them, but it's up to your business decisions on how to implement them. And that's really the point around that story is that this company caught me off guard. I thought that was just a given. Of course you want to do a chargeback. We do it at Microsoft. If I want VMs or what have you, my MSIT department sends us a bill. I get charged back. But that's, again, that's up to your business. This is a business before technology, going back to those earlier slides. One more example before I get ready to hand over to Brian is that I was sitting in what we call the Executive Briefing Center here about 4 months ago with a multinational company. And I always have the discussion with these execs of, you've got to do something with this. This is not the Toys R Us generation of the data centers where you in the 90s where it's like, oh, look, blinky lights, blinky lights. You've got to actually solve a business problem. It can't be there just for blinky lights. And so the company goes, well, we want to run VDI. And I'm going, cool, okay. VDI, great technology. We've got a great demo, or had a great demo down at the NetApp booth in the exhibition hall that's going to be closed by the time we get out of here. I said, well, why? VDI is cool. Why do you want to do it? I said, well, let me tell you a story, Mike. We had an exec taken at the border of a country, and he was thrown in jail, and his laptop was taken. We want to protect our execs, and we want to protect our data by making sure that anything on their laptops, in terms of corporate data, is not there when they cross geopolitical boundaries. I'm going, that's a damn good business case. Absolutely good business case. And so that's really comes down to is this business before technology. Look at all these NIST definitions and find out how they apply to your environment. So now that we've gone through kind of the high level, what I want to do is turn it over to my scary smart technical person, Brian Sarasi, and let him take it for about 5 or 6, maybe 10 or 12 slides. I'm not sure how many he's got, but and then I'll come back and I'm the opening act, and then I'm a little bit of a closing act at the end. Brian, are you stuck? Please stand by. Technical difficulties.
No. Am I on? There we are. Thanks, Mike. All right, good afternoon. So unfortunately, the scary smart technical guy couldn't be here, so you have me instead. No, but in seriousness, I'm Brian Sarasi. I'm a program manager in the Windows Server division. I've been with Microsoft for about 12 years. Been specifically focused on virtualization pretty much since Microsoft got into it. So I've been involved in the virtual PC release, virtual server, and Hyper-V versions 1, 2, and now 3, which is coming with Windows Server 2012. Also, along with that, one of the core pieces or components of any private cloud solution is the virtualization platform. And I've been working with Mike over the last several years designing our private cloud architecture, if you will, for Fast Track specifically. So as Mike mentioned, Fast Track, really what we're talking about here is when you're talking about architecture and design, there's a lot of different components. As I mentioned, there's the virtualization component, there's the management component, there are things like chargeback and reporting, there's concepts of elasticity, high availability, infinite resources. And Microsoft, we have our opinions and impressions on how best to do this with our technology. But as Mike was, keenly explained, it's not just about the Microsoft way of doing things. What we're trying to do here with Fast Track is basically do all the work up front, not only from a Microsoft perspective, but also with our partners' hardware solutions and software technology from our partners as well. So there's a lot of different ways you can skin a cat, and when we're working with these different partners, we want to highlight and work integrated in an integrated fashion with their hardware technology, whether this be the storage, network, or compute aspects. And so when we're talking about integration, it's simple things like management packs, pro integration, to make sure that our management infrastructure understands fundamentally what's happening from a hardware perspective, and taking action to do things like thin provisioning and data deduplication and things of these types. So really what Fast Track is all about is the networking, compute, storage, management, virtualization layer, OS layer, all combined and all together. And what we do, first of all, is we create what we call our reference architecture design. This is Microsoft's way, again, of doing things from a private cloud perspective using our technologies. And then we partner up with each OEM, and we'll talk and go briefly through each OEM solution. But then we work with them and create one large document. It tends on being hundreds of pages long, talking about how these design principles are met through the Dell way, or through the HP way, or the EMC way. And again, we'll go through all of these different partners. And then we agree upon the solution mutually. We say, yes, we believe you and NEC, Microsoft and NEC together combined can deliver upon all of these principles. And then what's the next piece? We actually build this out. So with our partners, we build out the entire infrastructure, soup to nuts. This is all the hardware components, all the software components, and then we validate it. We run through smokescreen testing, we run through performance testing, optimization testing to make sure that all the components work. Our goal here is this is not theoretical. This is not how it should work. This is the first thing we do is write the reference architecture about how it should work, and then we get in the lab and we actually build it out. And the OEM is usually spending many weeks building out the infrastructure. We, Microsoft, arrive on site with them usually about anywhere from 3 days to 7 days at a time. And this is when we go through all of the validation to make sure that all of these cloud definition and principles that we adhere to can actually be met. We do things like failover. We do things like self-service portal to make sure that we can rapidly deploy VMs. And then out of that, we have deployment guidance, operations guidance, and Technical Reference Architecture White Paper, which is a public guide that talks about what we've accomplished between Microsoft and the OEM. So the key thing here is it's repeatable. The whole reason why we're doing this is because we wanted to narrow it down. We wanted to say these are the design principles for private cloud. We've tested it with the OEM, and now you can engage with the OEM and Microsoft and get one of these solutions in your environment. And it's going to be repeatable. We're basically ensuring that it's going to work upon deployment in your environment. And it also drastically increases the speed of deployment. You're not sitting there with the do-it-yourself guys and trying to figure out making the decisions. We've done that on your behalf so you can be confident that, number one, the deployment is going to be quick, and number two, it's going to meet all your needs once it is deployed. So Mike kind of talked about the different ways that we derive our reference architecture, our Microsoft's best patterns and practices around private cloud deployment. And there's a lot of different areas that we grab it. He mentioned that we work heavily with MCS. So I'm out of the product group, and we obviously work with Windows Server, which is my product group. We obviously work with the System Center team, and in this case with version 2, System Center 2012. But really, a lot of that, in my opinion, tends to be more academic. Again, it's the way that it should work and the way that it's designed to work. But one key thing that we've done is partnered closely with the MCS team, who's out in the field doing these real-world deployments. They're really trying to figure out SQL database for the management infrastructure. How many SQL databases do I need? How do they scale when I go from 500 VMs to 5,000 VMs? How does my management architecture change? So we didn't want the theoretical, we wanted the practical application as well. And this is one of the key reference models that we rely upon. It's called the DDC reference model, and it talks about the whole stack from service delivery, the software stack, the platform stack, the infrastructure stack. We're not going to go into this in detail, but this is just an indication of the practical implementation of how it's done on site is one of the key things that we brought into our reference model. Also with System Center 2012, this is pretty much how we design it and architect it. We know System Center 2012 is a single product. There are still, subset technologies within the single product. And this is kind of on the left-hand side, is kind of some of the key services that are delivered in our private cloud infrastructure. And what we're here doing is describing what System Center component delivers that service. So bare metal deployment, we use Orchestrator and Virtual Machine Manager, host patching, service template offerings. We basically go through and identify what component or set of components are delivering this service as part of private cloud. And again, when we're talking about private cloud, we're talking about things, again, like self-service portal. That's an absolute key. What we're trying to do is alleviate the need for an application owner to have to get deeply technical when it comes to the infrastructure. An application owner comes to the private cloud and says, I have an application I want to deploy. They don't necessarily want to know or do know what the servers are underlining, the memory, the network topology, how the storage is laid out, how the high availability is being achieved. That's for the private cloud to figure out. So a key component of this is self-service. We want the application owner to say deploy. And basically the private cloud determines where best that workload should be hosted, how its data is becoming highly available in case of disaster recovery and things of that nature. Now, one of the key things we do when we engage with our partners is we come with a minimum set of requirements. We talk about at first the minimum bar that you must achieve to meet our standards. And again, these are about high availability, around elasticity, around redundancy. We need to make sure that things are met. Now, one kind of important thing to realize here is sometimes when we talk about cloud, boy, it's a squeaky stage. I'll stop trying to walk all around it. When we talk about cloud, and when we talk about public cloud specifically, oftentimes with Azure, we really talk about stateless applications. And many public cloud environments are really based on commodity hardware. And the concept there is if the hardware goes down, if the server fails, big deal. The workload is stateless. It's not have any critical information. We can spin up 5 more virtual machines just like that and pick up the load. That's not what we're talking about typically here in private cloud. What we're talking about here is heterogeneous workloads and traditional workloads. These could be line of business applications, these could be SQL workloads, Exchange workloads, SAP workloads, and you need high availability. So when we design these architectures, we're not talking about the absolute cheapest hardware. We're talking about high availability hardware. We're talking about redundant paths across everything. So the servers are redundant. They have multiple power supplies. The network paths going out of the servers are redundant. The switches are redundant. The storage is redundant. We're talking about traditional infrastructure here for high availability. So there are multiple ways to skin a cat. There's converged networking, there's non-converged networking, there's iSCSI, there's Fiber Channel, there's NAS, DAS, SAN. What we try to do with Hyper-V Cloud Fast Track is talk about the minimum bar, what you must do to achieve high availability. And then we work with the OEM to identify their best technology that highlights that. Now, when we talk about other private cloud solutions out there from other operating system and virtualization manufacturers, they tend to partner with just a limited number of partners. Won't go into any specifics, but you can probably think about ones that are out there, and they say, you know, here's our storage partner, here's our virtualization partner, here's our compute partner, and this is your option. With Private Cloud Fast Track, in the typical Microsoft way, is we wanted a lot of different options, and we wanted each of our OEM and hardware partners to be able to highlight their technology. And we're going to get into it in just a minute, but every OEM partner you can practically imagine is part of Fast Track. And what we wanted to do is highlight their best breed way of doing things and accomplishing things. And that's what you get when you deploy a Fast Track solution. So here, for example, we have requirements around minimum amount of RAM, about onboard storage. We talk about local hard drives. We also have options if you're doing boot from SAN. Networking, for example. Let's see where my little laser pointer is. Networking, for example, again, there's multiple ways to skin a cat, but we do have requirements around the networking. So if you're using 1 gigabit Ethernet with no iSCSI, we have recommendations or more importantly, requirements around 5 total dedicated connections per server. This is breaking out your live migration traffic from your clustered shared volume traffic, management traffic, and then you have 2 dedicated NICs specifically for all the workloads running inside of your environment. We have options around if you're using 1 gigabit E with iSCSI, we have to go up to 7 network connections, and if you're using 10 gigabit E, you can go down to 3 network connections. So again, it's not so much about restricting our partners to saying you must do it with 5 network connections. It's about the amount of bandwidth that you must need or must have to accomplish not only your infrastructure needs, but the needs of the workloads that are coming in and out of your infrastructure. So we have, this, again, this minimum level of requirements for each of our solutions. We have storage requirements, again, around Fiber Channel. We also have requirements around iSCSI. So with Windows Server 2008 R2, the only way we can do what we call guest clustering is via iSCSI. So host clustering is when I have my virtualization hosts clustered together and the virtual machines can move across hosts. Guest clustering is traditional clustering like SQL clustering or Exchange clustering where the application itself is highly available through clustering. We do that today with iSCSI. That is changing in the future with Windows Server 2012, but we do have requirements around iSCSI to ensure that if you have cluster-aware applications inside of your private cloud environment, they work. So some of our partners have chosen to go with an iSCSI-only solution. Some have chosen to go with a converged iSCSI and Fiber Channel solution, and some of using a SCSI to Fiber Channel bridge to meet these requirements as well. But this is just a few examples and ideas of some of the requirements that we have around our Fast Track solutions. Networking, again, we talked a little bit about this, 1 gigabit E and 10 gigabit E connections. We have requirements if you're using converged networking for both your traditional networking and your storage as well. Some more information, then we get into the System Center components. So at the bottom, you see the full System Center infrastructure, including Virtual Machine Manager, Operations Manager, Service Manager. Now again, there are instances where our partners also have competing management technologies or value-add technologies that sit on top of ours as well. So we have, basically with each of our partners, we work closely to identify what the best option is, what the Microsoft components, we do have requirements about what Microsoft components are required, but we also want to highlight some of the value add management and software technologies from our partners as well. So this is just a few examples. This is actually one of our network topology charts that talk about the underlying network infrastructure. And again, we have requirements around fiber channel over Ethernet, around converged networking. We are expecting, again, heterogeneous workloads that need to be highly available. So we do have requirements around NIC teaming as well. Again, everything coming in and out of the server's network and storage are all multi-path and multi-redundant. We also have, this is another network diagram. If you're using the more traditional, which is fiber channel plus a separate Ethernet connection, opposed to converged networking. So we have specific design requirements that must be met for the different networking options. We also have different requirements around storage. So here in the diagram, you can see one of the options that we have, and this was actually our original option, is everything isolated and everything separated. So we have different LUNs or different, basically partitions for your storage for the different storage components. So we have a CSV volume 1, CSV volume 2, and it's different for the virtual machine operating systems opposed to the virtual machine databases, where you're going to get more random read-write I/O operations. We go down into the level of saying breaking out a CSV volume specifically for the logging, for virtual machine staging, for virtual machine page files, swap files, and the like. So we get very granular around proper SAN and proper storage design for the different types of workloads that will be running in your infrastructure. And then we also went down the model of designing a similar one, but specifically around one large CSV volume. And there's pros and cons of both, but there's options and reasons why you go down one path opposed to the other. We built both solutions, we've designed both solutions, we've documented both solutions, and based on the OEM or the partner that we work with, we validate one or the other of these solutions that they've deployed. We also go down into virtual machine storage placement. So we talk about, again, when you're looking at a specific virtual machine, you might have multiple virtual hard disks, multiple data stores. You obviously have the operating system virtual hard disk for the workload. You have the data disks, and you also have the logs. Again, we get granular enough where we talk about if you're using a single clustered shared volume, how you architect that, opposed to if you're actually breaking it out into separate volumes and separate LUNs. Also very interesting, and this is where we really get out of the academic and into the actual and the real implementation. Some of the, System Center 2012 is out, it's in market, it's in the wild, it's doing quite well, but there was also a lot of new design that needed to be thought about, specifically around how do you do high availability for all the different System Center components. Some components require guest clustering, some components want to rely upon host clustering for their high availability, and some components also just have built-in high availability either on the database or on the application side itself. So we went down to architecting. Here's all the System Center stack: orchestrator, operations manager, service manager, virtual machine manager. How do we make them highly available? How do we store and where do we store their databases? And how are those databases highly available? And then we also have to consider about how do you scale. All of our fast track solutions are not just a snapshot size. They have a certain level of scale. You can add more memory, you can add more nodes, you can add more disk. So when we're looking and you're considering a fast track solution, there's a range. And we'll talk about how you can decide upon what scale and what size of fast track solution. But you can look at it from the number of nodes, and you can also look at it from the number of virtual machines that it can consolidate. But as you scale up, again, from 500 to 5,000 virtual machines, how does your management scale? How do you design this and implement this in a way that your database isn't going to fall over once you go over 1,000 virtual machines? This is all part of the reference architecture for Fast Track. Now, I know I'm talking kind of at a high level. We're not getting into the deep details. And one of the reasons here is because twofold. Number one, it's thousands of pages worth of guidance that we've created. And number two, the real crux goal of Fast Track was to do all this research and all this design guidance so you didn't have to. I will say, though, however, that we're publishing, hopefully in the very near term, our Fast Track guidance and recommendations for the do-it-yourselfer as well. It will be just the Microsoft side. I encourage you to continue to visit the Fast Track's site to not only see the solutions that are available in market now and today, but if you want to understand at a lower level some of the details of why we've made the decisions we've made, that guidance and the do-it-yourselfer guidance will be made available over the course of the next several weeks. So here we talk again about host clustering, native application high availability, and guest clustering. Now let's talk briefly about our different partner solutions. So we have partnered and in market today, we have solutions from Cisco, Dell, EMC, Fujitsu, HP, Hitachi, NEC, and NetApp. In the version 1 solution, which was based on System Center 2008, we also have IBM. Currently, we don't have an IBM solution on version 2, but we're in discussions with them presently. So again, I won't go into too much detail, and as Mike pointed out, it's a bit unfortunate we were placed in the time slot we are, because several of these solutions were down in the solution pavilion over the course of the week, so I hope you had an opportunity to talk to some of the different OEM hardware partners around this. This is an alphabetical listing, so we'll kind of go one by one. So alphabetically, our first solution was from Cisco and EMC. This is just an example. Again, I talked about these solutions are designed to scale. So this solution particularly starts at 8 nodes and goes upwards to 16 nodes. So if you start at 8 nodes and your infrastructure continues to grow, you can add nodes to the solution, and we have guidance about how you'd properly do that. These are based on the B200 M2 node implementation, VNX 5300 array, both Fiber Channel and iSCSI to meet that guest clustering requirement. They're using strictly boot from SAN, converged Fiber Channel and Fiber Channel over Ethernet, and full integration. And again, this is key. This isn't just Microsoft Stack sitting on top. We have to have the Pro packs. We have to have the management packs. Operations manager has to understand the health and the performance of the compute, networking, and storage, as well as the workloads. And what the Pro packs allows us to do is to take action. And if alert is identified, we can now go and integrate with the hardware, with the servers, with the storage, to do more provisioning, to do live migration, to do dedupe, to do cloning and things of that nature. Another solution, and this was just announced a couple days ago, this is the brand new vStart 1000. Dell had it downstairs in their booth. vStart 1000 is based on Open Managed Pro packs. It's using the PowerEdge M620 blade servers, Compellent Series 40. This is a great solution. And the vStart, the 1000 or the 50 or the 200 is a rough approximation of how many virtual machines it's designed to consolidate. This is based on the concept of small, medium, and large virtual machines, compute, storage, and I/O requirements. We also have a solution from Hitachi. Configured, again, this one scales from 8 to 16 nodes. We have 3 different solutions from HP, the VS1, the VS2, and the VS3. These grow in scale, kind of starting from the medium-sized business up into the large enterprise. The hardware technology changes as you scale up, as well as the number of virtual machines it can consolidate scales up. The VS1 solution is 96 cores and a total of about 1.5 terabytes of memory. It does have, again, it can scale within that range, but that's kind of the starting point. The VS2 is 336 cores with a total amount of almost 11 terabytes of memory. This is based on their blade systems. These are the P4800 SAN technology. They're ProLiant PL460 servers. And then their VS3 solution, which is their latest solution, is a total of 512 cores with 16.4 terabytes of memory. This is based on the 3-par design with ProLiant BL460 blade servers. We also have a solution that was led by EMC that is working with Brocade and HP technology. The storage is their VNX 5300 storage array using dual Brocade 800 SAN Connect technology. Their network is the 8000 as well as the HP Gigabit Ethernet cards. The servers by HP are based on the Dell 380s, DL380s. Or excuse me, Dell, HP 380, HP DL380s is what I meant to say. Continuing along, we have two different solutions called FlexPod solutions with EMC. Again, full integration. NetApp has done great work on basically integration with Orchestrator to do a lot of workflow automation. So very rapid provisioning of virtual machines, very rapid provisioning of their underlying storage technology as well. When you're kicking off some of the self-service portal, the underlying PowerShell and Orchestrator scripts are very significant in the solution and very impressive. They've also built a solution validated with Citrix Zen Desktop, specifically for VDI solutions. So this is one of our only fast-track solutions that is kind of customized for a specific workload, in this case VDI. And we've worked with them to leverage some of the Citrix technology for advanced VDI placement as well. And then we also have a solution from Fujitsu. This is their Primergy server technology and their Eternus storage technology. And then last alphabetically, we also have the NEC Fast Track solution. It's scalable up to, it's based on starting on 5 physical servers, 8 cores each, but it scales up as well. And we actually have a gentleman here from from NEC. So at the very end, if you want more information about this solution, I'd encourage you to come up here to the stage and you can talk to that gentleman as well. So again, in short, what we're talking about here with Fast Track is Microsoft's best practices about building private cloud. But we take it beyond that. Private cloud can't just be software, it has to be the entire hardware stack underneath it. We've partnered with each of the major hardware manufacturers to deliver solutions. And they have solutions designed for the medium, large, and enterprise businesses. Most of these solutions, the way you engage is you engage with the OEM or with Microsoft. Several of them are deployed as a services-led engagement. But again, the time to deployment and the success of deployment is very high due to the fact that we've done the design work, we've done the paper validation, we've done the on-site validation, we've repeatedly deployed these solutions in our labs before they'll ever go out to market. And that's one of the key technical value propositions behind the Fast Track program. So the next thing I'd like to do is a brief demo, and then I'm going to hand it back over to Mike. So how many people are familiar with the Solution Accelerator, specifically what's called the MAP tool, Microsoft Assessment and Planning Tool? Anyone familiar with this tool? Okay. It's a great tool developed by Microsoft. It's currently in version 7, which will be released shortly. And it has a long history, but what it's designed to do is help you assess your environment and plan for migrations into new things. And over the last several years, some of the components they've been adding is around migration into a virtualized environment. And now with the later versions of MAP, including 6, 6.5, and now 7, it helps you migrate or plan your migration into a private cloud solution, and specifically a Hyper-V Cloud Fast Track solution or Microsoft Private Cloud Fast Track solution as well. So we're going to switch over and take a look at this, and I'll kind of describe as we go along. Okay, so this is the toolkit itself. And as you can see, we have a lot of different options, but under the cloud options, we do have Microsoft Private Cloud Fast Track. And if I select this option, it's a wizard. I'm going to go ahead and click start off or kick off the wizard. Now there's two parts of the MAP tool or the MAP solution. The first is the assessment, and the second is the planning. What this tool is designed to do is sit in your environment and assess all your workloads, both physical and virtual, and understand what their utilization is. From a memory perspective, from a CPU perspective, from a network perspective, from a disk IOP perspective. And this is a completely agentless tool. You don't have to go to all your servers or all your workloads and install an agent. It's using APIs and different open systems to be able to identify what the workloads are doing. And one of the new features in the MAP 7.0 tool is now for the first time we're actually assessing Linux workloads as well. As you know, Hyper-V and our private cloud solutions are great for consolidating Linux operating systems as well as Windows. We have now, many people aren't aware of this, but I think we actually made the top 10 list of Linux source code contributors. Microsoft was actually on that list. And that's because we're now building our integration components for Hyper-V directly into the Linux kernel. So all Linux versions based on this kernel and above will automatically have the Hyper-V integration components, so things like host time synchronization, mouse integration, faster network I/O is all built into Linux. So our goal was to be the best virtualization platform, regardless if you're running Linux or Windows virtual machines. So the first part of this tool assesses your environment, both Linux and Windows. The second part is it takes all of that information that's gathered and it maps it to a fast track solution. So you can plug in different fast track solutions and say, if I go with this solution from HP, how will my workloads in my real environment fit onto the solution? Will I be memory bound? Will I have enough CPU? That's really what it's designed to do. So the first thing I can do here is I lost my mouse. Here's just a few of our options. These are just sample solutions. So you can say, I want to choose this solution, which is a 6 to 12 node fast track solution. If we go into the view, you can see more information about it. We have two configurations. We have what we call base and our maximum configuration. So as I mentioned, fast track solutions are designed to scale. You can start with 6 nodes and you can scale up to 16 nodes as an example. So what we'll do is we'll actually map your workloads to both the base and the maximum. So you say, if I buy just the base box, how much will fit on there? And then how much more room do I have if I scale up to the maximum amount of memory, the maximum amount of storage, and things of that nature. So this is just an example. You can see number of hosts, total amount of IOPS, talks about the processors, the memory, and then we do it again. Same thing under the max configuration. So now our IOPS are higher, our memory is higher, and so on and so forth. So we'll go ahead and select this solution as the solution that we want to map our workloads against. We'll click Next. You can also say, map it assuming only 50% of the memory. If you want to reserve something, we'll just leave it at the 100% mark. And then where do you want to get the data from? Now, we're not going to run the assessment. That takes a long time. Oftentimes, people choose to run that assessment in their environment for weeks because they really want to see the peaks and valleys. They want to see that those finance virtual machines at the end of the month really peak up because that's when they're doing all their end-of-the-month reports. So we obviously haven't run it, but we have a result of a test that we have run. So we'll go ahead and import that. And here's all the virtual machines that we've run in our environment. We have 378 of them. You can see we have all different virtual machines. We have Windows Server 8 Beta, Windows Server 2008 R2. We have Ubuntu. If we go ahead and sort by virtual machine, and for example, scroll to the top, we'll see Fedora, we'll see CentOS. If we scroll down to the bottom, we should start seeing some of our SUSE and Red Hat virtual machines or physical machines as well. So again, we're looking at both. Here it will tell you whether or not you're seeing physical or virtual. We'll go ahead and select all of the virtual machines. So we're going to say all of our workloads, both physical and virtual, and we're going to map it to the fast track solution that we selected. Here's an example of what we picked up, and we're going to go ahead and click Finish. It's running. Usually takes about 5 to 10 seconds. It's completed. Now here is just in our window a quick overview of what it's done. It talks about the number of servers discovered. It talks about placement. And then it actually starts showing you what the placement looks like. So here is our first 12 hosts, host 1 to host 12, the amount of CPU used, the amount of memory used, the amount of IOPS. This, again, is based on our base configuration. And then it does it a second time based on the maximum configuration. And here you can see, because we've increased the amount of memory for this Fast Track solution and disk IOP and storage space, we now have several hosts or nodes that are completely unused. We can go ahead and generate a report/proposal, and it goes ahead, and what it's going to do is it's going to dump the report, both an Excel spreadsheet and a Word document, into the My Documents folder. So I'm going to let that go. It's closed. Got to scroll down here since I'm in a remote desktop session. And if we go over to Documents, and we go into Map, and we go into Demo, here's my reports. Let's sort by date. We did this one. It's using some odd date. We'll want the later one. So this is the report that it just generated. And we don't have Word licensed, so ignore that red box. Microsoft Private Cloud Fast Track Planning Summary Report. If we scroll down, it'll bring us our table of contents. Obviously, I mean, this is almost a report as if you were a system integrator or a consultant that you want to bring to someone and say, look, this is what we can consolidate and what you can do with a Fast Track solution. So obviously, there's the key benefits. It talks about technical and business value proposition of what Fast Track is. It talks about where your organization is today, your number of Windows servers discovered, the number of non-Windows OSs discovered, the number of devices that cannot be placed. These may be because of physical hardware requirements, and maybe because the system was unable to fully determine what was running inside of the workload. It talks about the number of virtual machines to your physical machine ratio in your environment. And again, it goes into the details of how you place and how it fits inside of your Fast Track solution. So this tool, 6.5 is out today, 7.0 is in beta/RC. It's going to be released very soon. So please, if you haven't taken a look at it, it's a phenomenal tool. It also helps in client planning around migration to things too, like Windows 7, and they're working on migration of your clients to Windows 8. It's all around assessing your environment and planning for migration to the next set of Microsoft technologies. So with that, I'll say thank you, and I'll actually turn it back over to Mike, who will take us home the rest of the way. So thank you.
All right. Thanks, Brian. And let's see, I am on. That's good to know. Let's switch over to, make sure that comes up. Very cool. All right. So that's the technical, kind of the technical deep dive. That's Fast Track from the technical, how do we come up with it, what's in the reference architectures, and the real solutions that are there for you today. I just want to wrap up. I told you I'm an ex-high school teacher before I joined Microsoft, and so as I mentioned, I start with what I want you to know, we talk about it, and then I finish what I want you to know, and hopefully that's what you take away. We'll see. But I do want to come back on this business before technology, and these are the three, it's called the Metro interface. These are three boxes that we had before. I put them in a little different style here, just in bullet points, but these things can be integrated in your environment today. Very few greenfields where you just have a blank data center, nothing there, and you just drop them in and you can start over from scratch. No, these are designed to work with what you have today. We really want to manage that data center. We want to manage that complexity with System Center. And Orchestrator I call out specifically here. I really like to call out System Center Orchestrator because our partners are doing such a fantastic job with the scripting. Brian mentioned the Pro Packs and the Management Packs. We require the partners to create these management packs because we want to know what's happening, not just on the VM and the software level, but we want to know on the hardware level. If there's a problem, we want to know in System Center. Operations Manager gets an alert from that management pack. Operations Manager then can send an alert to Service Manager, which creates a ticket. Now, if that's a common problem, our partners will have created a PowerShell script or a script that will possibly resolve that for you without any user interaction. It can go out, we can fix it, we can do whatever we need to do, notify you, and it's a self-healing environment. If there isn't anything there that's in Orchestrator that has been built to resolve it, creates a ticket, you know about it, and then you can go answer it. But again, Orchestrator has been a fantastic tool and our partners have really lit up features and functionalities and capabilities with it. I usually end with one story on this slide, is that on a business before technology, again, I was talking to some execs in the company, and the sales team, which was, I suppose, their fault, they brought me in, and I scared the heck out of them. So these execs are asking about the technical details, and I'm going to the technical details and going, well, do you have this, and do you have this, and do you have this, do you have the ability to do replica and things like that? I'm going, I think you're asking the wrong questions, guys. My sales team at that point had cardiac arrests. And right there, 4 guys just dropped on the table. I'm going, you're asking the wrong questions, and these execs are going, what do you mean? Why are we asking the wrong questions? I'm going, my bet is you want your technical guys to find out if it has the technical details that they need to do their job. The question you want to ask me is, can I make you money or save you money? Is there something in my solution that is going to solve a business problem for you? And all the execs kind of looked at each other and go, well, yeah, we have business problems. Going back to the VDI example I gave earlier, or the example about chasing a number across the top of a spreadsheet. That's the idea here, is we want to solve a business problem. I don't want to be blinky lights in a data center and that's it. Nobody wants that. You're not going to spend money on that. We want to solve your business problems. So, ending with the fast facts, compute, network, and storage, you know about that. You've got it in your network today. Windows Server with Hyper-V, my bet is you have that too. System Center, most of you will have it. If not, highly encourage you to get that in your environment because it's going to help you. Absolutely. Brian went into this, I went into this. It's a validated design. Let us do that heavy lifting work, guys. Let us do the work of bringing this whole solution together physically. We don't just write it down on a piece of paper and say, oh, we're done. We actually build these things out. We want them to show up. We want them to be ready to go when they hit your loading dock in a nice pallet. And last one, again, is reference implementation, ready to integrate. It's ready to go in your environment. That may be a services play. Fantastic. It may be something you do in your own environments. That's cool too. But it's ready to integrate with you. It's ready to go into your Active Directory. It's ready to bring your workloads over. So, oh, hey, they put in a filler slide. Surprised me. So, a couple different resource slides. These are going to be standard from every session you've been in. Let me go to, this should be the, yes, complete your evaluation. If you don't want to see me again, give me low scores. Actually, I do ask this in all seriousness. Even as a high school teacher, I asked my students, and this is kind of brave, I asked high school students to fill out evaluations on me. And I told them, you can say anything you want about Mr. Truitt. No problems at all. I'm not going to hurt my feelings. But if you give me a bad mark, you need to tell me why. I don't get better without an explanation. Happy to happy to get from my students. I said, if you think I'm doing something wrong, tell me about it. It's no problem. But let me get better. Help me get better. So if there's something we hit here or didn't hit here or you wanted to see, let me know. And also, hopefully you win the Xbox because, I'd like to win the Xbox. With that, complete your evaluation. What we're going to do is Brian and I will be up here. We've got a couple partners in the room. We're going to be up here. Any questions, comments, concerns, please come up and talk to us. We're here, let's see, we still have about 10 more minutes in the room, and if we overrun that, we'll head on outside and happy to talk to you there too. Thank you so much for attending the session, and have a great week.